Hi, this is Dr. McDonald again. This time we're going to be talking about our American government. In your book, you've been assigned pages 35 through 38 to read and then answer the questions and do the identify on page 39. There was some question about the identify, but yes, I'd like for you to do the identify on page 39. To study American government, you really need to know the history of England because our founding fathers all came from England, and so their history was that English history. England, their history was one of conquest for the first 1,000 years AD, that first millennium AD. First were the Romans. The Romans conquered England and brought with them Christianity. It was early Roman Catholic Christianity, but it was Christianity nonetheless. And the Celts who were living on the island at the time converted to Christianity. But 100 or so years later, the island of England was conquered by the Anglo-Saxons, and the Anglo-Saxons were pagan. And so the Christians who were on the island were either killed, enslaved, some of them left the island just to get away from all the trouble. But during that time, the Roman Catholic Church decided to send a missionary, and they sent a missionary by the name of Augustine, and he evangelized the people there on England, the Anglo-Saxons, and they converted to Christianity. It was, again, Roman Catholicism, but it was Christianity nonetheless. The Bible that they used there in the 500s was the Vulgate version. It was a Latin translation of the original text into the Latin. And Latin was the language of the day early on. But as the centuries went by, less and less people were able to use Latin. Not only that, Bibles weren't very available to people. This was before the time of the printing press. So you combine the fact that people couldn't read and communicate in Latin, and that there weren't very many Bibles to begin with, they began to become hungry for the Word of God. So near the end of the Dark Ages, in the 1300s, there came a man by the name of John Wycliffe. John Wycliffe was a scholar, a philosopher, theologian, and he translated the Bible into English for the first time. About 100 years after him came William Tyndale. He was in the early 1500s, so it may have been 150 years after the time of Wycliffe. And Tyndale also translated the Bible into English. The Roman Catholic Church was absolutely opposed to translating the Bible into the common language of the people. I'm not so sure that they were afraid people would read the Bible, as they felt like the Vulgate was the version to use, and it was really the only Bible. I hear that a lot today, people talking about the King James Version, that the King James Version is the only Bible, and they don't want to give up that King James Version. And that's the way the Roman Catholic Church was in the 1400s. They didn't want to give up their Latin version of the Bible. And they were so adamant about it that ultimately William Tyndale was burned at the stake for translating the Bible into English. But by the time of the Reformation and the Church of England splitting from the Roman Catholic Church, there were some English translations. The Geneva Bible was translated in 1560 into English. It's called the Geneva Bible because it was translated in Geneva, Switzerland. But it was English. That's the Bible that the Pilgrims brought with them to the New World when they came. And then in 1611, King James I had the Bible translated into English, what we now call the King James Version. All of these different people had an effect on the laws of England and the way they do government. The Romans had a military rule, ruled by a dictator. The Anglo-Saxons divided the country up into these little city states, and later on, the Normans, when they invaded, uh, they established a feudal system where there was a king, and then there were other uh, nobility under them, dukes and viscounts and different things like that. For 1,500 years or more, that's the way it was in England. The rule was from the top down, a dictator, a king. But that made the people slowly desire and work toward rule by the people. And we see that slowly coming into place in England. And by the time our uh, constitutional fathers had come to this country and they were getting set to write a constitution, they had all of the authoritative rule that they wanted, and they had behind them several hundred years of the British people pulling away from that. And that's what our founding fathers wanted. They wanted to rule by the people instead of by an authoritative government. And we'll see more of that as we go along in this chapter. If you have any questions, be sure and ask them. I'll be glad to answer them. Uh, and It's not a lot of work, but you can find some of the answers to the chapter review in what I've gone over today. God bless you, and I'll see you either tomorrow or the next day.